Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today I am playing MKC's Legacy Showcase Challenge winning red-white initiative deck. So we've seen various takes of this sort of list before. I've played a few on my channel. Let's just go through what it does. Essentially we are looking to ramp out our 4-drops. We're doing so via 4 Ancient Tombs, 4 City of Traitors, 4 Chrome Mox, 4 Lotus Petal and 4 Simian Spirit Guide. So a load of fast mana with the aim of trying to play Seasoned Dungeoneer or Caves of Chaos Adventurer way ahead of curve and just beating your opponent with the initiative mechanic, which is very strong. Now, obviously there's no White Plume Adventure anymore, so we've had to sort of fill some slots. But being red means that we have our 8 initiative creatures here. But it also means we get to play some good spells in the form of Fable the Mirror Breaker, which can really smooth your draws out and find you those bits you need to put the game away. And if you ever get the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki online with any sort of initiative guy, you're just going to make speedrunning through the dungeon very easy. So we've got some other threats to go along with this, right? So we've got 4 Archon of Emeria, which is, in my opinion, one of the scarier threats this deck can deploy because it really slows down combo decks and it can mess with control decks lands. So it just seems like the best one of the creatures that you can have that is an initiative guy, in my opinion. We have 4 Fury and 4 Solitudes. We've got loads of removal here. And because we've got the red removal in the Fury, it means you don't have to play Source to Plowshares main deck. So we've got ourselves 4 Chalice of the Void. So this is another thing we can jam on turn 1 that does a lot of work. And then just to round it out, we've got 2 Touch of the Spirit Realm, which can either blink our Fury Solitude or these guys with the initiative on, or it can just be a removal spell if required. To back this all up, we've got 4 Cavern of Souls, which fixes our mana, but also the big things we're trying to cast are humans here, so we can get these up and running and uncounterable, which is pretty nice. We're a little bit shy of coloured sources outside of that, though. We've got 1 Karakas, because it's basically the same as the planes in our deck that's going to be sort of fumbling for colour sources sometimes anyway. And as soon as we get in the initiative, we get a basic, so it doesn't really matter that much. We've got 3 basics, 1 mountain and 2 plains, and we've got a couple of plateaus. So I feel the way to attack this deck from the other side of the board is probably to try and stop the first thing they try and ramp out and then just attack their mana. That's usually been quite successful in my experience. So hopefully we can avoid people doing that to us today. Sideboard-wise, we've got these Source Plowshares. So in things like the Mirror, when the Chalice isn't going to be very good, we're going to be boarding in these Source Plowshares just so we've got even more board control. We've got a couple of Containment Priests for Sneak and Show and Reanimate. Because we got fast mana, we can deploy this on turn 1 off of a Petal or a Chrome Mox, or sometimes a Spirit Guide plus White Source. We've also got a couple of Rest in Peace. These are going to be pretty useful too. Similar matchups, obviously. The Containment Priest is also good for Elves, for Natural Order and stuff like that too. We've got a couple of Loran on the third path. We sometimes will be able to bounce this with Karakas and just set up a looping, blowing up our opponent's permanents. But that's not always going to work. It's just going to, most of the time, be a 3-mana way of blowing something up and keeping a creature on board, which is perfectly serviceable. We've got some more Graveyard Hate. So the thing that's going to be beating us is stuff that goes under us a lot of the time. So the Faerie Macabre is hopefully going to help with that. And then we've got 3 Magus of the Moon to try and mess with like lands decks and stuff that can attack our mana, as well as also having things like Maze of Earth and stuff like that that can really slow us down. And if they have a way of winning the game, like a Minsk and Boo or something like that, or putting out a Dark Depths token, we can hopefully fend that off using Maze of the Moon and some of our removal spells. Alright, that's pretty much the deck. So there's one the Legacy Challenge Showcase the other day, so obviously seems pretty good, so let's just run with it. Obviously, before we get into this league, we need to do the classic plugs. Like, comment, subscribe. They cost you nothing, they help me out. And I'll talk about ways you can help me financially at the end, but let's just play some Legacy. Okay, we're on the draw for round 1. Our hand is pretty slow. I don't think a turn 3 Seasoned Dungeoneer is where I want to be. Our opponent's a Yori on deck, so they're going to be attacking our mana, so we kind of need to get ahead of that, I think. So we're going to mulligan. This is a turn 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer, and we can also do that around Wasteland. So I think this is a better keep. I'm going to get rid of this Plateau. I think, do we get rid of the Plateau? We only have 1 mountain in the deck. I think we get rid of the Plateau, and hopefully we can find another red source for the Fury when the time comes. Now, our opponent might not be on Death and Taxes, they might be on a different... Okay, this looks like a Death and Taxes start. Alright, our opponent is Death and Taxes. Understood. So, we could make a turn 1 Archon of Emeria here, but I think we're just going to play out a basic plains and pass, and then next turn... Actually, we should play out the Lotus Petal in case our opponent has a Thalia. So, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 mana next turn for the Seasoned Dungeoneer. Then, if we can find a red source in the near future, or just a red card, we can pitch a Fury and try and mess with them. Field of Ruin. So there's the sort of mana denial plan I mentioned that would be quite useful against us. Ether Vial. Sure. Mother Rune's going to stay back and keep itself alive. So we have a slight issue here that our opponent might be able to Swords to Plowshares our Seasoned Dungeoneer and just sort of run away with the game at that point. So I think we're going to play out this Chalice that we've drawn first so that we can dodge a Swords to Plowshares, which forces them into having the Solitude. So at least we get 2 for 1 with our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Although we're going to have to put 3 cards into making it, including the Dungeoneer, but it does refund a land, so it'll be a 2 for 2 trade. But I don't want to get in a situation where our opponent just takes initiative off us and then keeps it with their more controlling elements. I feel like we're quite far behind here. Okay, a Stoneforge Mystic. This is the thing that can realistically erase what we're doing. Not a big fan of this. Yeah, Cauldron complete. This can also get back the initiative quite easily. I think this one's already slipped away from us, if I'm being perfectly honest. Okay, so we can Seasoned Dungeoneer this turn, and we're not using our Simian Spirit Guide, so we can use it for the Fury. We want to pitch cast that. The problem is, it's going to be tricky to pitch cast this one, because, well, I guess we're just going to trade it for the Mother of Runes, but I guess all we can do is try, right? So hopefully, I imagine they're going to keep their Stoneforge Mystic around here, right? 3 and 1 is fine. Yeah, so it looks like they're keeping their Stoneforge Mystic alive, so they can get the Cauldron down. This does mean that our following creatures will be able to, our following removal spell, sorry, will be able to target their things. And we do have exile removal for the Cauldron Germ token. A Touch of the Spirit Realm can blink out the token, which is going to be pretty good. Have they got a second Mother? Or are they just activating it? Alright, they got a second Mother. We are probably going to lose this one, I would say. Alright, Stoneforge Mystic, putting in the Cauldron that we know about. We're going to get whacked pretty hard here. They're going to get the initiative, which is going to get them a basic land out of their deck. They haven't played a land yet, so we might have just fixed them a little bit. Our opponent does have very nice planes there. Look at these nice little snow-covered planes. Alright, what do we need to find here? Touch the Spirit Realm. Doesn't actually get around the Mother of Runes. Does let us blink our Seasoned Dungeoneer potentially. Which might be a thing we want to do. We have an Ancient Tomb. That doesn't do anything here, does it? Alright, so I guess we're going to go to tax. Let's see what's on top of our library. Alright. An Ancient Tomb we didn't want. Excellent. So do you want to scry here? Or do you want to just try and pump our guy and race? This comes for 5 and then 7. I think we have to race and get lucky with our top decks here. I could be wrong. But we are in a position that is just going to get worse every single turn. Because our opponent's deck is designed to play longer games. So we'll play out this plane so we don't take any damage. And we can hold up Karakas in case our opponent gives us a good thing to Karakas bounce. Unlikely that they're going to play a Thalia into our open Karakas. But it's free for us to hold that up. And it saves us 2 life. Because we're not going to tap these Ancient Tombs unless it's going to somehow win us the game. Alright. What is Ether Vial putting in? They do have a Thalia. Okay. That's fine by me. We can bounce that when the time comes. It doesn't really impact anything. So they've gone up to 3 on the Ether Vial, so they have things like Flicker Wisp that can just ruin our day now. I'll be very surprised if we win this game. But the initiative is a very silly mechanic, so maybe we can get there. Attacking with both of these. That's an interesting block to me. So our opponent's probably just going to Flicker Wisp this anyway, and they were going to try and force through some damage. No? Interesting. They're just getting rid of their Stoneforge for free. That's a weird one to me. I've had attack with the Thalia to force through additional damage, maybe. Oh no, they got the first strike here, haven't they? We're getting completely blown out by that. Oh my god. I've walked into that one pretty badly. Oh no. I keep forgetting about the first strike on this gem token. Yeah, we're definitely losing this game. We deserve to lose now. Yuck. So it's Thalia. I don't believe we have any more basics to fetch, so we're just going to get absolutely ruined here. So now they know exactly how many basics we have for game 2 and potentially 3. There's a Thalia again. At least they're not porting us down. But how are we supposed to win from here? So we carry the Chaos Adventurer. So we attack first and get the initiative. Alright. I don't think we can win this one. We could have had 2 additional points of damage if I hadn't made a mistake last time. Put this into our graveyard. It's a Simian Spirit Guide we don't want. This bashes for 6. Then we hit them for 5. Go into the Undercity. We hit our opponent for 5. And then we are dead on board, so we're going to try this guy out. We do get to draw another card, and this guy can soak up some damage at least. But it's going to be very difficult with the Forge coming in. Okay. So we can probably win the game if we get another turn, but I don't think we do, right? So we're effectively on 3, because if any of their guys connect, we get done here, so they can attack with all their guys. Yeah, we're dead. My mistake didn't make a difference, but it was still a big mistake. We could have had 2 more damage, possibly have something on blocks this turn, and we're still going to be taking enough. I should have... Yeah. An error. Didn't matter, but it was an error. Let's go to the second game. Yikes. How are we supposed to beat all these things? The Loran of the third path seems relatively useful here. They got a bunch of equipment, so I wouldn't mind blowing up. I don't actually like the Chalice too much here. I'd rather have some plows and just keep their guys off the board so we can just win with the initiative. This leaves us trying to find one more slot. We could bring in Containment Priest because it trumps the Ether Vial. That's the thing we wanted. Magus of the Moon can shut down some of their mana denial strategy, but I don't think it's where I want to be here. So if we want all of these, then we need to find 3 more cuts. I think our removal is obviously going to be pretty important here. I don't think we can really trim on the mana too much either here. Fable is a powerful tool I think we might need to leverage, especially against mana denial. Chrome Mox, obviously, our opponent's got mana denial in the deck. I guess the Emeria is not that useful, the Archon of Emeria, because they have a lot of basics in their deck. It is a flyer, can slow them down a little bit, but I think the tools we're bringing in are just going to be better. So let's try this. And we have Loran and Containment Priest, so it's kind of not really impacting our curve by swapping that one out. Slightly less impactful, but they tend not to multi-spell either. So what are we looking at here? We are looking at no plays here. Let's mulligan. What are we doing here? We've got a plow. We've got a lot of removal, actually. I think we'll keep this one. And I guess we'll get rid of the red card. And we're just going to sort of play the control here, swatting all their little things as best we can. And then trying to win with the Seasoned Dungeoneer when the time is right. So if our opponent plays a Mother of Runes this turn, that'd be great for us and we can just plow it. An Ether Vial, not so great for us. We can get rid of it with Touch the Spirit Realm down the line. And we have Loran of the third path as a draw that we can have. The problem here is, do we play this Ancient Tomb out or not? Okay, so now it doesn't matter as much. Let's play this one out. We'll play out this Chrome Mox. I think we'll imprint the Touch of the Spirit Realm here. That does get rid of Cauldra, but then so does Plows. And Plows are just more flexible and cheaper, and we'll be able to play them. So I think we're going to put the Touch underneath the Chrome Mox. So we can hold up double Plow next turn. Because we're getting are we supposed to get Plains? Well, no, we're supposed to get a Mountain here, aren't we? In case we draw the Caves of Chaos Adventurer here, because we have 2 white sources now. But we can still hold up double Plow. That's not a problem. We should then port. If they're just going to port us while we beat them down, that's not going to be great for them. Sure. If they're doing this rather than ploughing our guy, then I'm going to forge up our guy. Let's try to speed run through the dungeon as best we can. Go attacks here. This will tweak the top of our deck a little bit. Fable the Mirror Breaker. I would like to draw that card. That's a very strong card. We'll drop this mountain, because that's another land that can't be wastelanded. And then we're just going to be ploughing any creatures that we get the chance to. And just trying to speed run our way through the dungeon and get them. Right. We're looking at here. Skyclave Apparition. Okay, so we're going to lose our Seasoned Dungeoneer here. But we will take this out and get a 4/4. So we're still going to keep the pain coming. And it's best to get rid of this now before they can start blinking and doing shenanigans. So we've got Fable the Mirror Breaker on top of our library now. So we get to trap our opponent. For 5, put them to 11. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Let's jam this one in. We'll hold this in hand because we might want to discard it to the Fable next turn. It's not really helping us cast any other spells right now. So our opponent's down to 7. Next turn we might be able to find another initiative creature and do some dungeoning. Go into the Throne of the Dead 3, which should be quite a powerful one. We don't have any of like the really big Chance for the Annex that you sometimes see in these decks, but we should be a-okay. Yep, so a wasteland that doesn't really matter to us. Sure. Like we're going to get treasure off the Shaman as well. Now they can put in a 3-drop and mess with us, but we do have a removal spell. Another Ether Vial, that's not really what they want. This is going to be too slow to impact the game. The first one obviously is doing work though. Solitude evoked. Feels like our opponent is going to try and flicker this with a Flicker Wisp. It's kind of the impression I'm getting here. Sure, so we have to hit this with a plow in response to the Flicker Wisp trigger. So they're going to target the Solitude, and then we're going to get rid of the Solitude because we don't want to lose our other creature and them have a 3/2 lifelink on board. That would be game over for us. It's getting tight now, but our opponent has no cards in hand. What do they exile to the Flicker? A Containment Priest. Interesting. Okay. Fail the Mirror Breaker. We need you to do some work. We do get to draw an additional card here. Rishdan Port. That's fine. I guess we could have floated there in case we drew a plow. A Fury. 1, 2, 3. It's not really doing it for us. I think we'll bin off both of these. Just look for a red card. Interesting. We can just cast a Fury now. That's pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This should be relatively soon, I think. Our opponent's Hellbent. We've got loads of stuff, and we've got the initiative. Yeah, they're just skipping it up. Like, they can play one more turn if they want to, but they value their time, and I appreciate that. I don't think we want to change our sideboarding here. I think this is just about where we want to be. Chalice is especially worse on the draw, so we definitely don't want it now. So let's just submit. Interesting they're playing the Containment Priest against us when it doesn't really do that much. Okay, what do we have here? We have removal into... So this one is a bit slower, but I'm going to keep it. Because we have removal spell into removal for their Ether Vial into Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Our opponent's mulligan to 4, so our hand looks pretty alright, given that context. Basic planes and no play from our opponent. Seasoned Dungeoneer, that's a nice one to have as well. Let's just sit on the planes. If they've got a 2-drop, it's probably going to be Thalia, so we won't be able to kill it with a plow yet anyway. But if it's a Stoneforge, we can. Single white mana so far in the pool. What are they going for? They decided against it. Interesting. Okay, so we'll play out this Ancient Tomb. So next turn we can play the Dungeoneer or Caves of Chaos Adventurer if you want to. We're holding up Plow and Containment Priest in this turn cycle. A Containment Priest from our opponent. Sure, I don't really care about that too much. Let's see what this does. We'll take the 2 from this. If they don't play any creatures, then we'll just Plow this end step so that they can't contest the initiative unless they have another one. Alright, so there's a much better thing to Plow right now. So we'll let them get their equipment, probably the Cauldron, and then we'll Plow this guy end step. Trailblazer's Torch. Okay, right, so this is one they can realistically cast in a couple of turns as well, but we'll just get rid of that guy now. Touch of the Spirit Realm is certainly not unhelpful. Let's play this on human, and we'll jam ourselves a Seasoned Dungeoneer. This one can get through a 3/1 Flicker Wisp, which is the reason I played it first. I guess we should get a mountain here. In case we lose our Cavern, we can still cast the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Right, our opponent thought for a while and then decided on a Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. So not going to be attacking this turn. So it's good news for us. Our hand is already pretty stacked, so I think we're just going to forge up our little dungeon lad and see what we find. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana available. Unfortunately, Thalia doesn't quite care about that, does she? Because she's going to make this a little bit more expensive for us. We might just be able to speed run and get them here, though. What's this? Caves of Chaos Adventurer. That's a pretty strong one. Let's have that. So our opponent can't block here. They'll take 6. They can get the initiative back, but it means they won't have any blockers for next turn. It's an annoying amount of mana. 7. We could have played this, the city, I guess. It's 4, 5, 6, 7. Played this, but we still couldn't play the Touch of the Spirit Realm. We could blink the touch. We could blink with the Spirit Realm, but I don't think that's good enough. I think we're just going to jam this out. I don't like how I played this turn. I don't think it's going to matter, but I think we should have played this turn differently. Let's trap our opponent. Just get him dead. So we're representing a lethal on the backswing. So they attack with everything. They need to have some more action. So I don't mind that. Yeah, so what we could have done is we could have played out the City of Traitors and had the ability to cast a Containment Priest as well, so they can't even get the initiative this turn. That would have been alright. Or we could have played Touch the Spirit Realm for 4 mana Or we could have used the blink on it. I had a whole different selection of options there. Like we could have used Loran to make our blink of the Touch of the Spirit Realm cheaper, but I'd rather use the Loran to actually blow something up. But we could have held up the mana to possibly blink something so they can't take the initiative this turn. But we've put our opponent in a spot where they kind of need to swing out to get the initiative, but then they'll die on the backswing. So I think this is fine, because this way, if they do that, we have the Touch of the Spirit Realm to just remove their blocker and win the game. If they don't, then we're just going to mash them with some big lads anyway. Flicker Wisp. So this with Containment Priest is a bit of a combo, because my creature will never come back again. They're getting rid of the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So if we'd have held up the Touch of the Spirit Realm, we could have blinked the Containment Priest, but it would still come back before our guy comes back, because of active player, non-active player. So it wouldn't have actually made that much of a difference. I guess we could have blinked our own guy in response, but then the Containment Priest is still there. Yeah. Right, so we have the Touch of the Spirit Realm we can use to remove a blocker in a second. They're only getting a basic here, so it's not the end of the world for us. So we've got Caves of Chaos Adventure on top of our library now. So what is our strongest options here? We attack with the Seasoned Dungeoneer first, because this maximizes the amount of Undercity stuff we get. Touch of the Spirit Realm. It doesn't matter, this is going away in a second anyway. Actually, no, we're going to draw the Touch of the Spirit Realm, aren't we? Okay, so it takes 4 mana for us to play Touch of the Spirit Realm. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll leave us with 3 mana. So we can't cast Chaos Adventurer that way. So we have to blink the Containment Priest out here, which is fine. So we go, we'll blink this one out. This is until end of turn. So the idea is this won't be in play now. And then we can just play this guy. And then we'll go into Throne of the Dead 3. And we'll get something like Fury, hopefully, and we'll just clear their board out. No Fury. Do we want another Caves of Chaos Adventurer just to start it all up again? Another Seasoned Dungeoneer? Do we want a Solitude? Just get rid of their flyer. That's probably fine. We don't mind them getting a bit of extra life here because we've got a massive hexproof lifelink guy on blocks this turn. So we're not getting attacked, and then we can attack with a big unblockable guy next turn and win. Definitely think we could have navigated these turns slightly better, but we're already at such an advantage with our opponent mulling into 4. That's no excuse, but I think there's definitely some learning in this one of how we could have sequenced things differently. We could have held up the touch, but I don't think holding up the touch then would have actually impacted the Flicker Wisp turn. But we could have used it as like an end step, remove one of their guys, and possibly finish them on the next turn. But we're losing a guy anyway. Interesting. I think the more I think about that turn sequence, the better it was, actually. Like, it felt like I'd done something wrong, but actually it was fine. The one thing I should have done is play the Containment Priest day on that turn cycle. Alright, our opponent conceded the game. I think they played better than us in that round, but we just won because our deck was doing pretty gross things, and they mulliganed pretty hard in the last game. Let's go to round 2 and try and tighten up our play a little. So our hand is turn 1 Fable into turn 2 Archon. We have to do it that way around because the mana from a Simian Spirit Guide. I think we'll keep this. We're on the draw though. Opponent mulligan to 6. Ancient Tomb. We might be doing similar things to each other here. We're going to be doing very similar things to each other. So our opponent could be on some kind of prison deck, like Red Prison. They could be on Painter. There's a lot of options. That's what we draw here. A Chrome Mox. Does that change what we want to do here? I think it means the Simian Spirit Guide gets imprinted under the Chrome Mox, is what it actually means. So we will have slightly more mana, potentially. But our opponent, because we've got the Chrome Mox instead of having the Simian Spirit Guide pitched. However, our opponent does have this little Shaman token. If our opponent is like sort of a mono-red stompy deck, we're going to want this Solitude for their Caves of Chaos Adventurer or whatever. If they're a Painter, we're going to want it for their Painter's Servant. So I don't think we fire it off on this Goblin Shaman token. We have the option of trading Shamans here. I'm not sure if that's a thing I want to do or not. Okay, so they are a Painter deck. Goblin Welder. Okay. So if we don't block with our Shaman, we can attack, get a treasure, and that will let us cast a Solitude. So I think we're going to take this attack from the Shaman and let them have a treasure. A little bit awkward, but I think that's the correct play. We will not block here. We also have an interesting choice of whether we get rid of the Welder or we get rid of the Painted Servant here. Here we get to discard some cards. I think we're definitely getting rid of this Cavern of Souls. Are we getting rid of the Simian Spirit Guide or the Plane? I think it's the Simian Spirit Guide, right? That makes sense to me. Just keep all of our bits and pieces in here. Okay. So our opponent's got one card in hand. So if it's Grindstone, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, which is all they need. And then this can cycle this. So we kind of have to hold up the Solitude here. I think we're incentivized to use it in our opponent's turn anyway. We can fire it off now and kill the Welder. Or we could try and wait and hit the Painter. I think we do fire it off now, actually, and just get rid of the Welder. Because otherwise we're just going to be in the same problem. Now, this does permanently exile stuff, but Welder is just so annoying and strong at messing with all sorts of their engines. It helps them with their fair plan as well as their unfair plan. So I think just getting rid of the Welder is where I want to be. Now, if they have Painter Grindstone in hand, then they can kill us this turn. Because you need 6 mana to play both pieces and activate it. And they have that once they attack. This could be a Fury. Feels like a Fury. Which is really bad news because they have Reflexive Kiki Jiki. So if they Fury and then start copying it, we cannot win the game. So they get to kill both of our creatures here. And what are we doing? We can play like a Seasoned Dungeoneer, but that just gets killed by Fury. If we play Caves of Chaos Adventurer, it gets killed by Fury. I think if we don't draw a removal spell, we scoop the game because we're just done at that point. We do have our own Fable and Mirror Breaker, but I don't know if we can realistically do anything with that in the time frame we have to try and make this game not a complete failure. 1, 2, 3, 4, so it'll put us to 10. They'll copy this, it'll kill our big guy, then attack us for 12, and we'll have to chump block. Yeah, I think we're done here. Copying Furies is pretty brutal. Okay, so they are a Saga deck, so Magus of the Moon is interesting. They sometimes play this themselves, though. Well, I'm also interested in these. The Containment Priest is pretty good against Welder. And Plows, obviously, just to get rid of some guys. Pretty much our whole sideboard here has use, right? Which is interesting to me. How do I feel about Chalices in this matchup? It can shut down Welders and some of their blasts and things, but I don't actually like it that much. It's not something that... I guess if you have Chalice and Magus, it's very hard for them to play around the... I don't think we can have Magus. I think we can just beat the bits and pieces if we need to. Touch the Spirit Realm is fine. So the problem with Chalice is it makes our Lotus Petals very bad. Because if we have a Lotus Petal and they can get... If they can get a Welder in before we get the Chalice or something like that, then they can really mess with us. Maybe we keep the Chalice on the play. Do you want Faerie Macabres or do you want Rest in Peace? Rest in Peace is really hard for them to interact with, so I think I'd rather have the Rest in Peace. Containment Priest is very easy for them to interact with. So we're looking at cutting 7 to fit these in. That's still loads, isn't it? Archon of Emeria is good, especially on the play. Touch the Spirit Realm isn't... It can hit some of their artifacts as a thing, but I think I'd rather have the Plows. It's just instant speed interaction that can mess with our opponent. I guess if we're having Loran, we should cut... We should replace on curve, right? So maybe we're replacing Fable. I think our opponent is just a better long game deck than us. So we'll try it like this. We have turn 1 Chalice into turn 2 Loran of the Third Path, which is alright. I think we'll keep this. We have a Fury if we need it. We can also cast the Emeria if that's better than the Loran on turn 2. And we get this out before they get a chance to play a Welder, so they won't be able to Welder away our bits and pieces. So if they play something like a Great Furnace, then I'm going to Loran it and just say no to that. And I also have the Karakas loop with that, so our opponent's going to be in trouble. Ancient Tomb. Okay, so they can play an artifact here. Fable and Mirror Breaker, I imagine, is what they're playing. Yep, there it is. So we can blow this up. Don't mind that. And this will stop them, because they want to use this so they can cycle the cards they can't play underneath Chalice. So we're just going to say no to that and blow up their Fable. So one thing we have to consider here is, do we want this Goblin Shaman token to untap? Because we can Fury it away now, or we can try and Fury it away next turn. I think I'd rather wait a turn and see if we can pick up like a Goblin Engineer or something along with it. It does mean giving them 1 mana, but we're not really taxing them on that element. We're taxing them on the fact they can't play 1-drops. If we draw another white source and they play an artifact, we just get to blow up another artifact along the way. So our opponent's kind of in a bit of a bind there. Right, that's a good enchantment to blow up for us. What are they going to have here? 3 mana. This could be a Phyrexian Dragon Engine. Nope, our opponent's decided against it. Maybe they're going to attack first and try and get a treasure. They might have also been trying to rely on the Fable to get them coloured mana. But I can do that with the Shaman. Painter's Servant. Okay. Doesn't very much incentivize us to use a Fury. Unfortunately, the Fury can't kill both of their guys. I suspect they're attacking here because that gives them... Red mana? No, they're not attacking. I suppose their Power Blasts are off anyway. So, how are we navigating this turn? We don't have access to another white source. I think we're going to cast this Fury and dome their Painter here. So now we can play the Archon of Emeria and make our opponent's mana development slightly slow and also give us a clock that can do some stuff in the air. So I like this. The other option there is to hold up with the Loran and bounce it so we can play it again next turn. But I think the reward for that is pretty low. We could play Chalice the Void on 0, but I don't think that's worth doing because we have a lot of zeros in our deck that I don't really want to hit. And if our opponent had zeros, they probably would have played them to give us like multiple things that we want to do with our Loran. There's a Great Furnace coming in tapped. Our opponent's probably just going to be making construct tokens. So if we can find a white source, we can just keep blowing them up with Loran in the third path. If they have a Pithing Needle, they can use that to shut down our Karakas to stop that from happening. Because they can get it off of the Saga. Do not find another white source though. That is a problem for us, truth be told. I'll bash with the Archon of Emeria. We can play out a Simian Spirit Guide, but I think it's best just to hold it because we can hardcast a Fury if we draw one. Do we want to play a Chalice of the Void here? I don't think so. We can block with our Loran and then bounce, so we don't take any damage, and we also reload with our Loran to blow up one of their constructs, which is probably where we're going to go, but we'll see what our opponent does with their turn. Because they're down to 1 spell a turn anyway, I'd be very surprised if they didn't make a construct here. Oh, they're just floating mana off of their Saga. They thought about it for a while, so probably not ideal for us. A Grindstone, okay. We could die if they have a Painted Servant this turn, because the Goblin Shaman token will give them the extra mana they need here, so they can use that and the Great Furnace now to deploy a Painter, attack, get the extra mana, and grind us out. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Okay. It's obviously a little bit annoying, but the problem we have here is we're taxed on so many angles, right? We need to stop them being able to beat us down with their construct. We also need to stop them being able to grindstone us out. And also we don't really want the value from the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So many angles, things are going wrong here. It's a classic case of being the a deck that wants to play initiative things and not having our initiative creatures. They can't cast any spells here, so I'm pretty safe to do that. Okay, so we're probably just playing Loran the third path again. The real question is, what do we blow up? The Fable represents a lot of value to find them the win here. The Grindstone is obviously part of their combo. And the Construct token is beating us down. They don't have Painter in hand now because they would have used it before. I think we have to hit the Construct. Now, if we just found a second white source, we could just, every turn, get rid of one of their permanents. I think we have to hold back with the Archon of Emeria here to block. Yeah, our hand is pretty bad here. Let's see how much they discard. They should discard 2 cards. If they just find Painter, they win. So they discarded a City of Traitors. I wonder what's in their hand that's so good that they're not just going to pitch it to try and find a Painter for the win right now. Alright, there's the Painted Servant. Are they fearful of Solitude? Or are they just going to grind us? As soon as they grind us, we concede, but they might try and play around, which might give us an opportunity to draw into the thing we need to break their combo up. Because the Archon of Emeria means they can't defend it, even if they had a way of doing that. They'll probably just grind us in our upkeep and kill us, which is fair enough. Some more treasures. They're kind of beating us down in the combo front here, obviously, as well as the damage front. They're doing a right job of that too. So I can't cast on the spell, so I don't feel in danger this way. I can just clear up one of these Shaman tokens. I might wait till our turn because they can play a spell as well as activate their Grindstone. So I'm going for it now. Sure. We are done here. Yeah, we got thoroughly dismantled with that one, I would say. That's the power of the Painter deck, is that they can angle in 2 different fashions. So they've got this combo that kills you, but you know, Furies and stuff when we're trying to commit creatures to the board are pretty strong. Now, if we can get our creatures down early enough so they get big enough to avoid Fury, sure enough. But that isn't what happened, and we're not living in White Plume Adventurer lands anymore. We can't just guarantee the initiative on turn 1 like you used to be able to. Alright, let's go to round 3. We've lost a die roll again, and our hand is pretty slow. Is a turn 2 Chalice with Fury backup good enough? I don't think it is. Let's mulligan. This makes a turn 1 Seasoned Dungeoneer. We will keep this hand. One of these has got to go back. Are we just going to get rid of one of these City of Traitors? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. And then gets us a basic. So we can play Seasoned Dungeoneer into Seasoned Dungeoneer if we throw back the City of Traitors. So if they have Force of Will into Wasteland, we lose this game. But we'll see. Underground Sea, we can lose this game in many fashions because they could just Doomsday and combo us pretty quickly. Although Initiative does pressure life totals in a rather impressive fashion. So let's see if we can do that. Our hand does one thing here. So I want to keep this Lotus Petal back if possible. I guess we do play it out. But I'd rather use the Simian Spirit Guide here because this mana can produce any mana. And if for some reason we don't get the basic we need off of this. Alright, we're in. There's our basic planes. So we have Seasoned Dungeoneer into Seasoned Dungeoneer. We are doing one thing. Attacking. Now our opponent can kill us this turn if they're on Doomsday. Double Underground Sea is usually pretty indicative of Doomsday. Doughty Voidwalker. Alright. That can get the initiative back pretty easily. Let's just get big. Snuff Out can get us here. Let's make another one. Trap our opponent. Hit him for 5 here. Hit him for possibly more. We will put Simian Spirit Guide in our graveyard. Only one of these gets to work because the first one gives it protection from creatures, so the second one fizzles because it's not a legal target anymore. We have Touch the Spirit Realm, which we can blink some stuff out with if we need to. Our opponent currently is dead on our next turn because we did the 4-drop on turn 1, 4-drop on turn 2 play. Wasteland with no targets. Wasteland is interesting though. That makes me think they're not on Doomsday. I'd like to see more of our opponent's deck really. Some sort of like blue-black tempo. I'm more expecting Dazes now because of the Wasteland. You tend to pair those together. Alright, so they've conceded. So they could be on like the Rogue deck that I think Brian was playing on his channel. These Makers of the Moons look like they might be alright. Maybe Plows. This sort of thing. I don't think our opponent is on combos. I think Chalice of the Void is going to be good here. Archon of Emeria is going to be good here. A lot of our deck looks like it's going to be pretty strong. I think Touch the Spirit Realm might be one of the weaker cards. So we can turn that into something else. Would I rather have Maguses or Fable and Mirror Breakers? I think I'd rather just my opponent doesn't get to play the game, right? Let's try like this. We can reappraise the situation. But normally these sort of blue-black decks tend to have very little recourse to Blood Moon. Like Death Shadow, for example, is pretty much just stone cold to it. Unless it can float blue for a Hydroblast at the right moment. Because normally they run 0 to 1 basics at most. We can make a turn 1 Magus of the Moon. Or we can make a turn 1 Seasoned Dungeoneer uncounterable. Provided our Chrome Mox resolves. We'll see what we want to do here. Okay, so maybe they are Death Shadow and they just didn't want to grab Underground Seas when we were beating them down. That's perfectly reasonable. Let's see what they take. They took the Magus. Alright. Means it was a good shout to board that in. I would like to play a Chrome Mox. It resolved. I would like to put in... This is the slightly tricky part. We can't really cast the Archon of Emeria here, right? We need to use this to make our thing this turn. They did pretty much look like they were at F6 there. So I think we're just going to go for the Seasoned Dungeoneer this turn. Force of Will here is pretty bad for us, truth be told. Especially if they follow up with a Reanimate. They could Snuff Out as well. That's an option they have. So we're going to get a Mountain here. So we can hardcast this Fury in 2 turns. We already have 1 white source. Ideally I'd like to put Cavern of Souls not on Elemental. Because that only casts the Solitude and Fury. Right, just the Wasteland. They're letting us untap with some mana. I'm going to Lost Well here. I think our opponent's got something where they're holding open We've got 4. We've got a decent selection of mana here, so I don't really mind. Not great for us there. Sudden Edict. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. A non-token creature. Okay, so we'll play this land that they know about. And this means we're going to lose our City of Traitors, but they're going to waste land that soon anyway. So mind that. We get the stash as well, so we can play a 4-drop next turn. We wouldn't be able to play the Fury with it. I guess we could have had the stash and played a Fury, maybe. Maybe that's better. But we got these 2 basics we'd like to get out of our hand. Turak, sure. So we have an answer for this already. We do need to be able to deploy this answer, though. So we get the stash into an Ancient Tomb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if we can Fury our opponent. Didn't seem like they had much in their counter spells before. Alright, we've got a Force of Will here. We are now looking behind. We have lots of good draws, but we did brick into a couple of lands, which is kind of the nature of this deck sometimes. Yep, so they're using the shuffle on. They're using the initiative as a way of shuffling for Brainstorm for free as well. Very, very powerful stuff going on that side of the table. They do have a basic island that's probably only in their deck because of the initiative, to be honest. Yep, we lose a land. They're going to deploy a threat here. Deploy a Death Shadow. Yeah. Okay. Going to be difficult to win this one, especially if we're drawing Cavern of Souls. So we take 4 this turn unless they can... sorry, we take 6 this turn unless they can get some more damage to themselves. This is one of the few decks where you sometimes trap yourself if you get the initiative with Death Shadow, because you can make your Death Shadows enormous. So, interesting they didn't put it on the pro-white creature to me, but sure. A Fury. 1, 2, 3. I think we put this on... The first one on Human, the second one on Avatar. Not Avatar, Elemental. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So we're dead next turn if they can lower their life total anyway. Because we go to 2. So if they can lower their life total by 1. Oh no, they got the trap hit or something like that. Yeah, we're just dead. Alright. I don't think I had any problem with my sideboarding there. Seems alright to me. I think we just roll it back. On the play, we're obviously a lot stronger. We have the ability to Chalice the Void. Could have these Fables instead of Archons, maybe. Actually, I want to do that. I'll submit like that with the Fables instead of the Archons. Reason for this is this can give us more mana against the Wasteland. This is a turn 1 Seasoned Dungeoneer with no follow-up. Or a turn 2 uncounterable Seasoned Dungeoneer, perhaps. Is that good enough? Our opponent's not going to keep a hand that can't deal with our first threat, right? So if we play... We have to play the Cavern on 1 if we want to cast it on 2, right? So we get 1, 2, 3. I guess we could play the Plains and then pitch something to the Chrome Mox. But if we want to use the City of Traitors, we can't do that. This is a tough choice. I don't think I just want to blow everything into this. I think I'm going to mulligan and try and find like a Chalice hand. Okay, we found a Chalice hand into Magus of the Moon. I will take that. One of these has got to go back. I think it's probably the Solitude. So we can pay around a daze if they have one. Obviously they don't have an island in play. But next turn, if we want to, we can Magus around a daze. But I don't think we want to do that because we'll lose our city. The other option is we can play a Seasoned Dungeoneer next turn. But again, we'll lose our city if we do that. I think we're just going to try the Magus using the Spirit Guide to pay. Okay. They're just going to waste on us. City of Traitors. Let's try the Magus out. They just scoop to the Magus of the Moon because they don't have they have 1 island in their entire deck. All right, sideboard cards are good. I'm happy with mulligan to find like Chalice or Magus and we end up with both of them. Yeah, we are 2 and 1. Let's go to round 4. Our hand doesn't go anywhere, so we're going to mulligan this one. We're once again on the draw. Yeah, this hand seems okay to me. Got Chalice and Fables and stuff. We'll keep this. I think we'll probably bin off the redundant Chalice. No, I think we'll get rid of the Touch of the Spirit Realm here. Like, wherever we don't want, it's going to get put into a Faerie Macabre anyway. Polluted Delta. This is probably a deck where I'm going to want a Chalice for 1, so let's do that. If they counter this, we can then do the same thing next time. This might just be a Brainstorm response so they can at least get some value out of their Brainstorm. Or they might be looking for a daze/force of will. Sure, there's a daze, we cannot pay. We could have played out the Lotus Petal first, but I don't mind this situation that our opponents put themselves in. They didn't have a turn 1 threat on turn 1, and we just get to do the exact same play again, and they're going to be in a similar bind. I think this time, because it's our second Chalice. Because it's our second Chalice and I'm more keen for this one to resolve, I'm going to play it with the Lotus Petal next door. Okay, Force of Will, pitching the daze. Sure. Okay, so we've punched through a decent chunk of our opponent's interaction. Next turn we can either play Caves of Chaos Adventurer or Fable Mirror Breaker, depending on what top of our deck gives us. A lightning bolt to the face. Alright, our opponent's only got 2 cards in hand going into the start of their turn. This is a good situation for us, I would say. No second mana drop, no threat. A Solitude. Let's cast this. We kind of need this to resolve because we're a bit shy of mana. Our opponent's got to have something over there, right? Okay, so we're in with the Fable Mirror Breaker. So next time we can pitch away some bits and pieces. I don't really want to get rid of the Solitude because that's going to be useful for killing a... Alright, no mana there. It's going to be useful for killing the Murktide Regent if that materializes. Because they're only 1 mana away from playing a big one. Ancient Tomb, interesting. We will discard some cards. What are we discarding? I think we get rid of... This is awkward, isn't it? These are so good with the Fable, but this is the thing that's going to get us above it. I don't think we can pitch a land here. Maybe we just get rid of just the Fable here. Okay. I think we'll play this one out. Imprint this Fury. Again, we're holding the Solitude. We're going to find a white card at some point, and I'd rather have an answer to Murktide Regent in hand. I'm taking a bit of damage for this off of our Ancient Tombs. So far, our opponent hasn't seen white cards, but we should definitely show them the white card because this game is far from over. So we're going to get planes here. If they're a deck with like main deck price to progress, they can certainly do a number on us. We're hoping just to ride this Caves of Chaos Adventurer. We've seen 2 lightning bolts. I don't know if we want to risk this getting bolted. So we're going to go Lost Well. Oh, our opponent's scooped this. So we're going to go get the Seasoned Dungeoneer, which is going to cost us 2 life this turn. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So we're going to go to 5, which is still 2 lightning bolts. But then our opponent will be dead in 2 swings. Okay, so game 1 went okay. Our opponent is not really going to be a fan of Chalice of the Void. So I'm happy to have that. They only showed us red-blue. Magus of the Moon will shut them off of their blue sources. That is a very real thing that we can do. Touch the Spirit Realm is reasonable removal against Murktide. Fury cleans up all their little guys. Rest in Peace shuts down their Murktide engine. I'm assuming our opponent is a Delver deck. I find Chrome Mox a bit of a liability against Delver when they're bringing in some of their bits to smash our stuff. So I'm going to trim down on those slightly. We're also in the situation of do we want Plows because they're... Or do we want these Chalices? Do we want these Maguses? Or do we want these Archon of Emerias? Magus is probably not so good because if we give them a lot of red mana, they're just going to bolt it. So I don't think we want the Magus. If we have Blood Moon, I'd probably have it in, but Magus no in this matchup. So this is a turn 2 Caves of Chaos Adventurer, which then lets us play a turn 3 Seasoned Dungeoneer and a turn 4 Dungeoneer. So that seems acceptable to me. Our opponent mulligan to 6. They're beginning with Delver. We will begin with... hold on. Let's play the Lotus Petal so we can decide if we want to pay for a daze or not. Let's put this Chalice in. Kind of want to save this Lotus Petal for... Okay, we're just getting a Force of Will straight up. That's good. Opponent's down to 2 cards. This means that next turn we can deploy Seasoned Dungeoneer. I think is the preferable threat because it doesn't die to a single lightning bolt. We can take a hit from Delver or we can touch the Spirit Realm at first. Wouldn't mind drawing a Solitude this turn just to clear the Delver out. But we'll see what we draw and then reappraise the situation. So, do we want to make a guy? This will give our opponent the initiative. Are we just supposed to get rid of our opponent's threat and then next turn play the Caves of Chaos Adventurer? Honestly, considering the situation of how many cards are in, I think that's what I'm going to go for here. It's kind of the quite conservative line, but Delver's generally pretty good against these initiative decks. Okay, we've got a Brainstorm here. They got a fetch land so they won't be locked, whatever they do. Okay, they're cracking a fetch land now. Just means they got another cantrip. A daze, which I will pay for. We've still got 1 mana up here. a second daze, which we will not pay for. Right, so our opponent's hand is just 2 lands now, from the 2 dazes they've bounced. Alright, Solitude would be a great draw for us. Otherwise, we're just going to have to jam this Chaos Adventure and take some damage. Our opponent is in a good shape there, I think. Cavern of Souls. Play this out on human. They haven't played out a red source, which makes me think they don't have. So we're going to play the one that actually races best this time. This will get us basic planes. So this one races quicker, if that's the thing we have to do, which is why I'm playing that one first. Although the Seasoned Dungeoneer does get its trigger, so it can sometimes swing for 4 on the first turn. So we go down to 5, then we attack them down for 7. Then we go to 2, and then we attack them down for lethal. Actually, no, that's not true, because they're going to get the Forge first, right, aren't they? So they're going to attack us for 3, and then they're going to make their guy bigger, and then they're going to be able to go to 5. Yeah, so we need to actually lost well here. Our opponent might not have another basic, though. They already had their island. Yeah. Oh, they got a snow-covered island. 2 snow-covered islands. It's a lot. Okay. We don't really want this guy to flip. What are we doing here? There's no way we win this, right? Wait, if this doesn't flip, they're still going to forge onto this and we die. Yeah, we're just dead. Fair enough. Let's go to game 3. Keep the same stuff, I think. There is an option for having plows, but I just think the Chalice is so strong on the play. I like Fables because they give us mana against the Wasteland deck. And they also mean that we can copy some of our stuff. Our hand doesn't really do anything, so it's got to go back. 1, 2, 3 mana. Our hand doesn't really do anything either. Make a turn 2 Fable, provided we don't get Wastelanded. That seems too sketchy for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can make a turn 1 Seasoned Dungeoneer. So we throw out one of them. Then we throw back the land here. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We get a land off of this anyway. Sure. I think we just got to roll high here. Our opponent kept 7, so I don't suspect we're going to win this game. The Delver matchup is very good against initiative, as a general rule. Let's see if we're in with the Dungeoneer. We are in with the Dungeoneer. Wowzers, trousers. I didn't expect that one. This is also one that can't be lightning bolted. Alright, we played a 4-drop on turn 1. Is that good enough to ride to victory? We might go down the right-hand side so we can get stashed to play the second one in a minute, rather than just trying to go straight for a race. We'll see what our opponent deploys here. A Delver. I think we are going to forge. Sorry, not forge. Lost Well, the one that lets us scry. So, if we put this on the bottom of our library and this on top of our library, then we get to make another Seasoned Dungeoneer this turn, which is a pretty good way of approaching the game. The first one resolved. This one is fighting against days now, though. This is one issue. Do we try and wait and play around days or not, is the question. If they have a Wasteland here, we just get messed up. No, I think we have to go for it here. If this is in, then we're good. Alright, we're good. Let's go to the stash. Alright. We have 2 3/4s that have protection from creatures on attacks. We're about to get a 4/1 skeleton. Why didn't they attack with a Delver? That's very strange. Because these have protection from creatures. So the first one on the right one, this one on the left one. So they can't block and bolt these either, so we're just totally safe. Ancient Tomb. Archon of Emeria. Is that better than an average draw? Opponent feels probably like they're in some trouble here. And they would be right. Let's jam this. Just keep making good spells. Now, if our opponent had a Force of Will in their opening hand, we would have lost this game. It's like playing Belcher here. Dress down. Okay. This is just to draw a card. Interesting they didn't, unless they've got something to combo with this. It's interesting they didn't play it during combat, because they could have saved themselves 1 point of damage. Wasteland, are you going after my Ancient Tomb? They now have an Archon of Emeria on top because it was revealed. This does reveal, doesn't it? Yeah. So they know we have an Archon of Emeria on top. So the Wasteland won't actually impact that because we have an Ancient Tomb in hand. And I believe they saw this Ancient Tomb. Okay, they are a Dreadnought deck. Alright. That makes a little bit of sense. Now the problem they have here is this has Menace. These have protection from creatures. And we're also going to the Throne of the Dead 3. Do you want a Fury here or Solitude? Solitude in the big guy is a little bit annoying, but I think it's the safest way of playing this game. We're going to play a few more turns because of that, but we've got so much damage in play, right? Alright, they're just scooping up. So, again, that was one of those hands where we've got a really powerful thing to do that's very easy to pick apart. Our opponent just didn't happen to have the force of will. If they have a force of will, we lose that game very, very easily, because we're so dependent on resolving the first one and getting the land to then play the next one. So, yeah, I think we are 3-1 now. 3-1 going into the final round for the possible 4-1. We've won our first die roll. Our opponent is a 61 card deck, which could mean that Weird Elf build that I've played against a few times, a 61 card, or it could mean Oops All Spells. I think this hand is pretty keepable though. We have turn 1 Chalice. That's probably an okay place to start if we're suspecting our opponent is Oops All Spells or Elves. And then we can also play into the Archon of Emeria. It's not super blistering though. I think we'll try it based on what our opponent's 61 card submission is. And the question is, if our opponent mulligans again, we might be tempted to play the Cavern on 0. If we play the Cavern on 0, because we think they're Oops All Spells, that shuts off our... What does that shut off? Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox. It doesn't shut off the Spirit Guides. Shuts off the Pact. It's a tough call. Because if we play this for 0 on 1, then we can play Emeria on 2. And we've kind of just assumed that our opponent is on that deck, which could be wrong. But I think I'm going to play it because there's not a lot of 61 card decks in the format. And if they are another 61 card deck, maybe we can get punished. But the chance of them being a 61 card deck and not being Oops All Spells seems very low to me. Tropical Island. Okay. What is going on? Let's play an Archon of Emeria. Maybe we should be playing 61 card decks online just to mess with your opponents. It's like a pretty viable strategy. I think on stream, twice I've correctly identified them as being Oops from 61 cards and twice they've been other decks. So, interesting. Right, it's our opponent's turn. So if we'd played the Chalice on 1, we'd have been in better shape. Maybe we should have been doing that. Uro. And Windswept Heath. We need to find something good here. That does not really constitute something good in my view. So our opponent can get a basic with their Windswept Heath, so they'll have the mana next turn. And you get one spell there, so if they cantrip... Okay, they might just bounce us. Please bounce our Chalice so we can play on 1. Sure, they did not do that. I think the chances of it being Oops All Spells is very high, and if you play Chalice for 0 against them, your percentage to beat them is incredibly high. So we kind of chanced it for the free win and didn't get there. Which is awkward. Okay, I don't think we want... I don't know what we want this on. It should probably be on human, just for down the line. If our Archon gets countered now, then so be it. We've got Hardcast Solitude for when the Uro makes it to play. Force of Will pitching Leovold. Leovold, okay, so our opponent's one of these greedy many-coloured decks. They're probably trying to string it together using Green Sun Zenith. Maybe that Leovold is the 61st card. Brainstorm. Right, back over to us. And just finish with their turn here. Yeah, here we go. A Cavern of Souls. This one could be on Elemental at least. And because it's a fairy, we kind of need to play it now. It is annoying that they have an Uro coming along soon, but I think we have to at least pressure this to fairy, otherwise we're just going to lose to it. I think we've already lost this game pretty much on turn 1. People playing 61 card decks. It's going to be an Endurance. A Natural Order, Instant Speed. Sure. You're going to show me an Atraxa? I'll see the cards I revealed today, Atraxa, and then I will concede the game. Our opponent's got a lot of basics, so Blood Moon's not going to be useful here. Sure, show me what you reveal, and then I'll scoop. Because we're not beating this. Prismatic Ending. Okay, just pretty boring stuff, but I don't think we're realistically going to beat this, are we? We got nothing going on over here. Save them having to resolve that. So, how are we going to beat this? Containment Priest pretty good against Natural Order. So that's something. I don't think we're going to need these Furies as much. We're definitely not going to need to touch the Spirit Realms, actually. So we're going to keep the Fury and over touch the Spirit Realm. Rest in Peace is okay here. They probably have some other tools that the Rest in Peace can mess with. Maybe we'll just have one rest in peace in. It shuts off Uro. But hopefully we can race the Uro anyway, because we don't really want these games to go long. So I think we'll run it like this. Containment Priest doesn't stop Uro because it's cast, but it does stop Natural Order, which is scarier to me than an Uro, because we can get above it or we can get through it using Seasoned Dungeoneer, and we've still got Solitudes. The Furies are there so they can clear out the Ice Fangs, but I suspect our opponent is going to have a reasonable time here, unless we just have one of those really silly hands and they don't have any turn 1 interaction. Just let us do our thing. Alright, we have one of these hands where we do the turn 1 thing, and if it's good, right? So I guess we'll keep this. If they don't have the turn 1 Force of Will, we're in an okay spot. If they do, we probably lose the game, to be honest. Kind of the nature of these things a little bit. So this Chrome Mox, this is an interesting choice here. I think we imprint the Solitude, but then cast the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Is that right? Or do we imprint... So I kind of want the... Yeah, we'll imprint the Solitude and then play this Lotus Petal. And then we'll play the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Then we already have white mana to play the Seasoned Dungeoneer if that comes up soon. Does our opponent have a Force of Will? They do not have a Force of Will. Okay, so we will get ourselves a basic mountain here so we can cast either the Fable or just have the 4th mana pip for the Seasoned Dungeoneer. We just need to dodge, like, Terminus, I guess. I don't know if our opponent's Natural Order deck's going to be running Terminus, though, when they got all their mana dorks. They might still have Supreme Verdict. Turn 1, Dryad Arbor. Oakley dokley. Alright, they've just scooped it up. Interesting. Okay, I guess we resubmit. Furies can also clean up a bunch of mana dorks as well, which is quite an important one. So we have Chalice into Containment Priest, Archon of Emeria. So we kind of have some of their stuff beat, but we're not really going anywhere. It's a problem. This is one of those ones that it's a keep, I think, but it's really unexciting. We don't have an initiative creature. I suspect our opponent is going to be mulliganing to find answers for turn 1 creatures. Play this out. I don't think our opponent's going to have days, but I think it's free for us to play this Lotus Petal. I think the Chalice is going to be better than the Archon this turn. And by doing this, it means we can play turn 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer. Now we've drawn one. They did not really seem to have any interest in trying to counterspell that. This will shut off their mana dorks as well. But if they'd have had one, they would have played it on turn 1. I suspect they're going to crack their fetch and get a Dryad Arbor. Oh no, they didn't get an end-turn Dryad Arbor. Interesting. That's a surprise to me. What are we going to find here? Force of Vigor. It's an interesting one. What are they exiles for that? A Green Sun Zenith. Okay. So I think we'll play out our Archon of Emeria here. So our opponent is probably going to fetch some lands in response. They might only get one depending on what the basics they want to find later on are. Okay, they wanted a Trop. Okay, I guess going to do all their brainstorm stuff in response. We can F6 for the rest of this turn because after we played the Emeria, that's it. Next turn we can play Seasoned Dungeoneer. If our opponent's getting close to a Natural Order, we can jam this Containment Priest. But I'd quite like to get the Seasoned Dungeoneer into play. I'd like to think our opponent's not going to have that much in the way of Wastelands kicking around in their deck because they're playing 4 colours, but experience has shown me that all these greedy control decks have some number of Wasteland in all the time. So our Karakas might eat it soon. Our opponent resolved their Brainstorm. They've drawn one of the cards they put back. Right, and we'll go to attacks first. They can't get Death Touch, so the Archon should be okay there. So the question here is, do I want to try and beat their... I think I do want to try and beat the Natural Order. I think they're going to play an end of turn Ice Fang, untap Natural Order. So I think I'm supposed to pass a turn here and play this Containment Priest. It's not the most efficient use of my turn, but I think I can be rewarded for it. The fact that I didn't play the Ice Fang now is kind of making me feel like I made a mistake, but I feel we lose to an Atraxa pretty sharpish. Teferi Time Raveler. Right, let's cast this. So this means we're going to have something to pressure the Teferi with. If they go up, we kill it with our guys. If they go down, we kill it with whichever guy's left. So not a great spot for our opponent there, and we can more safely jam our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Although if they bounce a Containment Priest, they're kind of incentivized to play the Containment Priest again, because it means that's what they're scared of, is the Natural Order. Sorry, their Natural Order being stopped. But they need to find a green creature as well. So I think we take a turn off from doing that. Okay, the Archon's gone. Let's go to attacks. This one will attack Teferi. Doesn't matter which one of these we play. They don't have Hydroblast mana up right now, so I'm going to play the Caves of Chaos Adventure into a spot where they can't Hydroblast us. That makes sense to me. Force of Will. Pitching Force of Negation, sure. There's Ponder. If we can find like another piece of fast mana, we can deploy Seasoned Dungeoneer and Archon of Emeria in the same turn. Obviously, we want to play the Seasoned Dungeoneer first because it'll get us a land, and also we can't play a spell after our Archon anyway. And that'll be a pretty good show for us. Alright, so this is something that can get natural ordered away. Our opponent's holding up the plow to clear the way for that. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Jam this Seasoned Dungeoneer. The Containment Priest is a cleric, so we're incentivized to do this pre-combat. Do we want a second red? I think I do want a second red. Oh wait, no, we can't get a second red, can we? I think we'll attack with the Containment Priest. And then we maybe will Fury. Because the way we lose this game right now is to a natural order. And I don't really want that to happen. Although natural order while we have a Containment Priest. But I think they have a Swords of Plowshares in hand. If they have Swords of Plowshares plus natural order, we lose the game if we don't evoke this Fury right now. It's a 2-for-1 to kill a Noble Hierarch. It's not very exciting, but I think it's the thing that means that we get to play this game for a few more turns. And we have, like, our board is good here, right? Sure. Applying our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Our opponent seemed very displeased with that one. I believe they have a natural order in hand, so we're going to put this on here and get going. Let's go attacks. They don't have a Death Touch Snake available yet. 1, 2, 3. Let's make this Fable the Mirror Breaker. So by playing the Archon of Emeria, they can't play like a Dork into natural order. Okay, they had a Dress Down, sure. Interesting you do it then and not at the end step so you can get an Uro into play. Trap our opponent. Spin off one of these, that's fine. Go attacks. And we have lethal here. They can have a Death Touch Snake. But if they have a Death Touch Snake, they die. Unless they Death Touch Snake into Swords to Plowshares. But they can't do that with the Archon of Emeria into play. Yeah, so I think we're just locked to win this game. Unless they've got something else. Endurance doesn't do it either. Alright, so that's the end of the league. So we finished with a 4-1 there. And I think the deck clearly felt quite strong. We made a few little fumbles early on, but we managed to recover a bit from that. The Painter deck thrashed us pretty hard. But other than that, we kind of did our thing. But there were loads of points where we could have lost the game very easily. If our opponent had a Force of Will in one of their games, we were just toast. So let's have a chat about the deck. So the thing about this deck is the ceiling of power level in this deck is really high, right? So when we make a 4-drop on turn 1, if it resolves, we basically win that game most of the time, right? I think the chances of winning the game when you have a 4-drop on turn 1, like one of the initiative guys, you know, it's probably somewhere in the region of like 80%. It's only combo decks that are going to come underneath you and get you, but most of the time you're just going to be able to beat down. Even Doomsday, you might not be able to race that because of the amount of damage you apply. So that's pretty good. The rest of the deck is a little bit shaky, right? I think Archon of Emeria is one of the best little guys you can have, but our curve starts at 3. So we have 8 cards that we can play to the board for 3 mana, 8 cards that we can play to the board for 4 mana, and then we've got a Chalice, which is kind of a 2-drop as well, I suppose. But if you don't have a soul land, playing a Chalice requires one of your like petals sometimes, and that can be a little bit awkward. I think whilst the ceiling of this deck is quite high, I think the floor is quite low. Because if your opponent, like, you have to mulligan a fair bit with this deck. And if your opponent can take away the one thing you're doing with your hand, it's quite easy to collapse your hand. And I think there's just not quite the consistency that obviously mono white used to have. And we're sort of running a lot of elementals here, which again is a pitch cast stuff. And if you're mulliganing a lot, that becomes more difficult to pay the cost for them. Now, we didn't have too much trouble with that, and we did cast them, but it's definitely somewhere I could think, oh, okay, if the situation was marginally different, then this would be a bit of a problem for us. Now, Cavern of Souls does help a little bit with the trying to get through Force of Wills. However, if you want to make a 4-drop on turn 1, you probably don't have a chance to use a Cavern in that situation, because that's going to require you to use Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, and Spirit Guide, or, you know, a combination of those cards. Like, you need 3 fast paces of mana and a Cavern of Souls, which is a lot to ask, in my opinion. However, if you've got, like, a Soul Land Chalice into turn 2 Cavern of Souls, make your guy, that's great. So the sort of the high power level hands this deck has are very strong. I do feel that this deck is, you know, because it's so swingy with how big its opening hands can be, it's not a very fun play experience for either player, to be honest. Because, oh, I just made my 4-drop on turn 1, I'm going to turn it sideways a few times and win the game. Sure, you don't have that many games with back and forth. Now, we did have a couple like that, but it didn't feel like many of the decisions I made mattered. So there was a game where I made a mistake, and it didn't matter because our opponent was going to win that game anyway. And then there was a game where I made a mistake with some sequencing, but it didn't matter because we were going to win the game anyway. It doesn't feel like I'm playing the deck. It feels like I'm there with it. Now, mulligans, definitely. Mulligans and sideboarding is going to be relatively skill intensive to make sure you have the right things. But there's also going to be an element of luck in the mulliganing in terms of, okay, I've opened 7 that makes a turn 1 4-4, a turn 1 4-drop. Sure. And then you'll have other ones where you have to mulligan quite deep to find a hand that will play. And that puts you at the mercy of things like Force of Will and Dazes a bit more. So it feels like there's a little bit of chunk of variance in this deck that isn't something that I personally enjoy from Magic too much. I like my combo decks to be built in a way that's really consistent. And I like my aggro decks to be similar. And same with control, really. I enjoy consistency. I would rather have the ceiling a bit lower, but the floor a bit higher, so I can kind of play around a little bit, whereas this deck kind of feels like it just plays you in most of the choices. Now, we definitely had some mistakes we made here, we had some choices we had to make, and a little bit of sequencing, so there is a little bit of a learning curve, but I think the learning curve finishes quite quickly compared to other decks. Now, I could probably still jam some of this and learn some stuff and make some mistakes by any stretch of imagination, but I suspect if I were to play 5 leagues with this deck, I would pretty much know it inside out. However, if you look at most of the decks in the Legacy format, things like anything from Breakfast, Doomsday, like Shark Tale, stuff like this, you're going to have to play loads more games before you actually can get close to mastering the deck. And I think that's kind of one of the attractions of this deck, that it's relatively easy to pick up and play, he says after he made a couple of mistakes along the way. But, you know, if you're going to put in the time to learn a deck, this one is not going to take you very long. But I don't think it's going to be very rewarding to play. That's at least my experience with it anyway. Sideboard-wise, it felt like we had tools we wanted. We had a player just immediately scoop to Magus of the Moon. That felt nice. The Plows, we didn't play the matchups where we wanted the Plows. Now, you can argue you maybe want them for Delver, but I think Chalice is just so strong. Perhaps we want Chalice on the play and Plows on the draw. You'd have to have someone who's got a bit more experience, which is one of the things that you can actually spend some time learning with this deck and working out your sideboarding options. But yeah, like, the deck's good. It's very easy to see how it won a showcase challenge. The high power level of what it's doing is very strong, even if it is susceptible to mulligans. But if you're not mulliganing a lot and your opponent isn't Force of Willing or turn 1 thing, then this deck seems very strong. Yeah, not really much else to say about it. Not particularly a deck I'm very fond of. But I think it's certainly got a place in the meta. And it's certainly got weaknesses now because you can attack the mana quite easily. But it does feel a bit unfortunate when you sort of get stomped by the really god hands of this deck. But then there's loads of decks in Legacy that can stomp you with a turn 1 combo as well. So it's not really that bad in the grand scheme of things. My main complaint with this deck, to be honest, is I don't find it very interesting. But the thing about Legacy is there's so many different decks that there's going to be things that appeal to every person in the format, right? That's why it's the best format. It's so much depth to it that, you know, some people will love playing this deck, and that's going to be their jam, and that's great for them. Whereas some of us just like making 2020s and turning them sideways, doing it a little bit differently. Some people like to storm off. So whilst this one isn't for me, it definitely is for some people, and I don't think it's overpowered or anything. It certainly has some very skewed matchups along the way, I would say. Things like Delver should be pretty good for the Delver deck because they can counter the first thing and then wasteland you out. But yeah, I think I've discussed this one enough. I hope you enjoyed this midweek meta deck of this MKC's Legacy Showcase Challenge winning deck list. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a member via the YouTube. You can also support me on Patreon. I'm going to have some content going up on there soon. It's going to be a primer for the green-black Toe Adepts deck that I love to play. And you can also contact me via the Discord link below, and you can message me for a donation deck. I'm currently charging £15 for a donation deck, and I'll play the 75 cards you want, or I can sort of build something along some parameters you want as well. Aside from that, 3 ways of helping me. Why not share my content to people? Like, comment, subscribe, all these things. I like to hear from you. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.